Hey everyone, welcome to The Breakpoint. I'm Jake Pimentel, co-founder of Tennis Finance, and we have an amazing guest today, Levy Yakubov. Uh, Levy is CEO and co-founder of FULFLLD.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me, Jake. Pleasure to be here. So FULFLLD, we started off as a last mile delivery service, but now we are a delivery management platform. We help brands and delivery service providers manage their deliveries more efficiently.
Got it. Interesting. And in your background, a little bit more about Levy. Started out with St. John's and was a PA, and then from there went straight into building his own company, which I'm really curious to hear that journey as well. And here at The Breakpoint, we like to ask the weird, hard-hitting questions. So for you, I'm curious, what has been maybe your weirdest delivery experience that you've had so far?
That's a good question. I have to think for a moment because there was a lot of weird delivery experiences. And it depends how you define weird.
It's up to you.
I think Yeah, like I would just kind of I'll be transparent here. We had a driver like in the earlier days, like probably like year two of operations. They were doing deliveries for groceries with a van, and they like couldn't find the address, so they ended up like leaving the food on the side of a road. So that was bad.
Oh my gosh, what?
Yeah, that was like as bad
What,
as
did
it
they
got.
just leave it
Like
randomly or what happened?
Yeah, like they were just like, tell us like, oh yeah, like we delivered it. And then like the customer obviously said, hey, we never got our order. Like I guess the manager was like driving by and he saw like that brand, which I'm not going to mention, was on the side of the road. So long story short, obviously those drivers did not end up working for us anymore. There was a police investigation done too.
Gosh.
And that
Wow.
was a weird experience that we learned from.
That's funny. It's like it's kind of those experiences where like, wow, I'm glad this wasn't a really big order or something and we learn from it. Um,
Yeah, it's definitely, like I'm not ashamed to say it because like those are like the lessons that made us who we are today. That's how we
mhm.
improved, right? Like we obviously, it's always better to learn from other people's mistakes, but in the delivery world, it's a tough business, right? I always tell people, yes, the barrier to entry is low, but that means that you're required to compete at a much higher level if you want to actually stay. You can enter, but
Interesting.
you're gonna get flushed out if you continuously make, any errors. And so that was a good learning for us.
Yeah. Super, super interesting. So I saw that you worked as a physician assistant, and then kind of what led to you just saying, "Hey, I'm done with this. I'm going to start my own company, my own startup and scale it up."
What led me to this? That's a great question. Well, let me start by saying the physician assistant career, occupation, job, whatever you want to call it, is an amazing, amazing job. Like you don't have to go to school for as long as you would need to become a doctor. And, you are almost practicing like the same way they would, just under their supervision. And it's very flexible. So like with that regards, and then like obviously the other part is you're helping people. So it's very rewarding. But for me personally, I kind of just, filled my cup in terms of curiosity, understanding how the body works. I love sports. So, doing things in like orthopedics and orthopedic surgery was cool. Yeah, eventually, maybe because my parents are, immigrants in this country and like money was always a struggle, I always had like this entrepreneurial itch. So I decided, you know what, there's a ceiling here for me. I can't really grow past this ceiling unless I try and take a risk and, you know, leave everything I have and just kind of start from scratch in building a business. And that's an interesting journey. I didn't jump to food delivery, actually. I wanted to do the smart thing and do something close to healthcare. And that for me was telemedicine, which is treating
Interesting.
patients virtually, kind of like how we are here by phone. And I'm a planner. I don't know about you. So, like, I just took my time. I created a plan before I quit my job. It wasn't just like, all right, I'm out of here, guys. Like, no, no, I respected them. I gave them enough notice. And I was just like
You
behind the
sound a
scenes
lot
at the,
more organized than me. I'm just like, let's go all in. Let's figure it out as we're falling, but yeah.
you and I would make a good partnership then because, that
That's
there,
yeah.
there's like the pluses and minuses of each, right? So, anyways, I ended up eventually quitting and I tried to open a telemedicine company. didn't know a thing about running a business. I thought that fundraising meant you just go and ask your close, friends and family, and those were investors. Like, no, those are now like what I understand, like our angel or, angel investors, but they're not even accredited. So long story short, it didn't launch after a year. I burnt up most of my savings, still living in my parents' basement and was young. So it's okay. But at the same time, I'm like, well, I just put a lot at risk here and I need to make something happen. So I tried some other smaller like businesses and they didn't really work. Not even worth mentioning. Like I tried to like even open like a marketing company with a buddy of mine. It was a fun
No
experience. I
way.
learned a lot. Yeah, yeah. I think that's the first time I mentioned it publicly. And then, yeah, after that, my mom gave me the idea initially for Fulfilled. Like we were just driving in the car and she was just telling me about like a bad experience she had with her grocery delivery, I believe it was. And I thought, okay, well, why not explore that further? So I went like door to door. Like I started like with one grocery shop. I was like, hey, like, how do you guys deliver? And then next thing you know, I was like the whole day I was just driving around going to anybody who delivers. I went to restaurants, I went to pharmacies, I went to like any place that potentially might deliver from the store. I just went to them and I spoke with owners and I said, hey, like Jake, I see that you have some products here and some drivers that, go in and out. Like, how's your delivery experience? And most of them would say, either that it can use improvement or, that they have a service and it wasn't great. And I thought, okay, the demand seems to be there. And then I went down the rabbit hole further. I posted a job ad on Indeed and I got probably like 100 applicants within, I think it was 1 or 2 days within the New York City market for a delivery driver. And I was like, oh, so the supply is there too. And, this was like kind of the thing I was looking for because I couldn't really invest anything else. I wanted to do something with a lower startup cost where I could just cover like the bare minimum, the foundation. We were just like setting up the entity, I guess, and like the legal side of things. But from there, it was just like, all right, like this looks like something I can launch fast and potentially hit the ground running. That's a long-winded story of how it started. And then, I'm so glad I was so naive thinking how easy it was because I probably wouldn't have done it if I knew. But yeah, it's like,
That's
it's like this. It goes like uphill, downhill.
that's incredible. It's kind of I mean, you've heard this from the CEO of NVIDIA, right? If you knew how hard it was, you probably wouldn't be doing it. So it's almost that naivety that gives like founders and business owners that kind of, oh yeah, let's just go all in. But one question I had is, there was Instacart, there's all these competitors out there, but what made you think like, wait, this can be better, or maybe there's a gap not being addressed? How did you kind of come to that realization?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think I didn't want to compete with the Instacarts. I didn't want to compete with the DoorDashers or Ubers or anybody else that was already very well funded, very well established in the market. And I think naturally, like kind of just, I didn't plan for it, but it just came to us that we saw a niche in higher valued orders. So perhaps catering deliveries, like orders that, feed 10 people, 20 people, 100 people. Perhaps it was meal prep deliveries and things along those lines is where we found our niche because the incumbents currently in the market at that time, they didn't really specialize in those, and sometimes orders would get late. Uh, Orders would arrive half, not half, but like a part of it was eaten. Believe me or not, that happens.
It's just like
Sometimes,
it's like I prefer. Can you hold the bites in my order?
yeah, exactly. It was supposed to arrive at uh, the loading dock and go taken up to like the 14th floor. It would go to like on a completely different address. And like, again, that's somebody's meeting, somebody's presentation that just got screwed up. And there's a market for that. So that's where we came in to solve that problem. And fast forward, we ended up building our own technology to just add more value in the efficiency and the management of those deliveries, partnering up with other delivery providers to help make sure, keeping the end customer in mind, they have the best experience. And yeah, that's kind of how we found our niche.
Wow, that's incredible. Starting out, right, I love the story of you just going to pretty much everyone and just walking in, ask them what getting those first 10 to 50 customers, what was really the strategy and where did you find market pull and what were like the key channels?
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna sound bad, but like there wasn't really a strategy. There was just like literally like, and for better or for worse, when I do want to start something, I'm very stubborn and I just go do it. And sometimes it hurts me and sometimes it helps me. In this case, I just said, yeah, I'm just gonna keep going and talking to people until somebody buys something. And that's kind of what I did. But I did refine the strategy over time. I saw that, all right, pharmacies, they're a little bit complicated there. They have HIPAA compliance and all these other things. Um, delis like they don't even deliver or they use like other things that we can't compete with. Then I found, okay, restaurants, they seem to have a big need for this. So like I just, as I got more data points on the ground, and obviously comparing that with like the research I do online to see like what's the market size, is this worth my time, that's how I refined the strategy.
Interesting. And we also now have ChatGPT, which can also just run all the numbers for us for market research. So even then you have more resources. So you found kind of going into that journey, you're like, okay, actually restaurants who maybe they're very large orders or more expensive, you're like, hey, here's great pool. They've had problems with these like DoorDash or Uber trying to just deliver this experience. And that's where we come in.
Yeah, like exactly. Like they kind of told us to like deliver those orders, and you quickly learn that you have to place a lot more attention and care than your regular order. And yeah, we tried to do like the regular small like $10-20 orders, and then we saw that, all right, that's not the market we want to be in. So we eventually just started only focusing on those catering orders and similar kind of higher valued orders like meal prep as well. And then again, sometimes through mistakes of our own, we had to go back, look at the drawing, like the playbook I should say, and see, all right, well, this wasn't working, this delivery arrived late today, and this can impact the business that we're helping. They can potentially lose that customer, so we have to make sure that we place a lot more emphasis on arriving on time. Okay, how do we make sure the driver arrives on time? Well, at that time, like we were just using like WhatsApp and messaging, and we said, okay, no, we probably need to have technology in the mix here. And that like it was incremental. It wasn't like an overnight like aha moment. It was just like incremental improvement, keep going forward. And then like eventually it got to a point where the customers were telling us like what features they need. And that's where we like put it into a software, built it, and now we're a SaaS company.
Yeah.
And doing the same exact thing just from a technology standpoint.
Got it.
We did it the hard way. Like we didn't just think about like ChatGPT or research the problem. Like no, we experienced this problem firsthand. Now we're adding it through the layer of technology to solve it.
That's amazing. And it seems like really, from what I understand, right, you kind of went in, you just brute forced everything. Like, hey, let's just get you the drivers. We'll do the supply and demand. Do you still do that? Do you still supply drivers, or is it kind of just more like software managing orders? And how does that work now?
Yeah, so we still do it, but now we're actually partnering with other delivery service providers
I see.
because our main focus is, like I mentioned, like the software piece. So we only do it like where it is in a unique situation and it helps the customer. But we also, like I mentioned, have delivery partners that we work with, and we can also send them orders now too. So we want to add value to both sides of the market. We've been in the shoes of a delivery provider. We know how important it is for them to get these orders, to get off the ground, what they need to have from the standard operating procedures to drivers to how they dispatch. That we find like is the biggest value add for us, because then when we're working on the other side of the market, like the brands, they benefit more because now they're not just getting somebody who's just a delivery provider. They're getting a delivery provider with the technology, and they're getting the experience, the know-how on the execution of that process that they have to deliver.
Wow, that's great. And one thing I love about your strategy and other strategy I've heard is, right, just do the service with pretty much low tech starting out And then as you experience it, as you experience all these problems, you understand what to build. And then the customers will provide really the roadmap for you versus, okay, here's this over-engineered product that we spent a year building, kind of like your telehealth medicine. But now that you're actually doing it and you have that experience delivering everything, you really grow in the right way. And the question next I want to ask is kind of what was that moment when you look back and like, wait, this is really going to work. This is exciting. Let's go all in. Let's dive deeper.
Yeah, that's a good question. I can't, like, it's hard for me to even think of a moment. Actually, you're right. There is a moment because there was more moments where you're like doubting and you just keep
Yeah.
going
Yep.
forward, right?
Is this even working? What are we doing?
Yeah, there's more moments like that than anything. But there was a moment like in the beginning where we had like our first large like enterprise customer. Funny enough, like they called us to try and acquire us first. And
Wow.
yeah, we were
That's quite a call. Hey, we want to buy you. You're like,
literally
what?
that's how the call went. And I was like, I mean, no, like, maybe down the road, I don't know. But like right now it's too soon. And this was like only year 2 of operations. But eventually like they wanted a delivery provider too. And we started doing business and they asked for like, I don't know, 100x or like 50x the amount of drivers that we were normally like supplying at
Oh
a
my
time.
gosh. Wow.
And yeah, we made it happen. So that was probably like the first.
That's incredible. So it's like 2 years in, you're like, all right, this is working. But when someone calls you, hey, we want to acquire you, it's like, no. Now it's like 50, 100x your drivers. Like, all right, this is
Yeah,
really good. Let's
exactly. Yeah.
is yeah, it's kind of funny. Most people like, starting out, they're I think having that patience and seeing things through, but also continuing learning. It's kind of cool to hear that, 2 years in, you're like, all right, yeah, whoa, this is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, like this, you're also a founder, and you're also growing a God willing, successful, huge company that will add value to the market. It happens like the work is done, beforehand. Like I think there's a saying like the more you sweat during training, the less you bleed at war. So when you're in behind the scenes working on whatever it is, a process, the website, the marketing, the podcast, like all of that translates later on. And I think like that's probably one of the biggest lessons that took me a while to learn, that it's okay to take your time. It's okay to not see the results right away. Invest in it now because it's like, how bamboo grows. I don't know. Have you ever heard of that?
All right, go ahead, talk about the bamboo story.
Yeah. So like bamboo grows, I think it takes however many, I'm going to butcher this, but it takes like probably like months or many amounts of weeks to grow underneath the ground. But when it sprouts, like it goes up to whatever, like hundreds of feet. And like that's kind of how it works with everything that's worth it in life. It takes a lot of effort. It takes a tremendous amount of time, but sometimes you get that, overnight success, as they call it, if you do the right things and you put in enough effort and enough consistency.
Yep, yep. That's so true for everything, right? It's kind of, you look at some of these really fast growing startups recently, and they'll put years into R&D and then just, oh yeah, we hit 10 million in revenue in 4 months, and it's like, well, really, it was years and years and years. And we actually started with this one thing for years, and no one paid attention to us. But that leads to really that fast growth, and it's really cool. I love that. I'm gonna start using that.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And so we're kind of coming towards the end of the Breakpoint podcast. This has been incredible. I mean, really, what is, I'd say, for our audience, what is one piece of advice that you could share if someone's trying to build a company like yours that they should really think about?
If somebody's trying to build a company, one piece of advice I would give is to make sure you understand your why. Have a really strong connection with yourself to know, why are you going to allocate hundreds of thousands of hours, and why are you the person to solve this problem? What benefit is it going to provide you? How are you going to help? Because like Simon Sinek and many other people say, start with the why and you can overcome anyhow.
Incredible. Love it. Cool. Well, at the break point, what we like to do is we love just saying thank you to our guests. And we like Midwestern restaurants. So we're going to give you a random gift card to a random Midwestern restaurant. So I'll spin the wheel. And today you've gotten a gift card to, it's spinning right now, Olive Garden. So I don't know.
Woohoo!
So, as a thank you for being a guest, we love our Midwestern restaurants and the chains that are just,
Awesome.
Olive Garden's. It's a good one. It's a good one. But Levy, this was amazing and really enjoyed hearing your story and got some great nuggets of wisdom.
Yeah, thank you so much, Jake. Appreciate you having me.
All right. Have a good weekend. Bye.